Good morning from Grand Island, New York, just north of Buffalo, where it is hot. July 1st, happy Canada Day. Happy Bobby Bonilla Day to those who participate in that. $1 million a year, a little more, must be nice. For another 10 years still after today. Pretty good. We will talk about the Dolphins-Steelers trade, of course. Miami and Pittsburgh playing nice. That'll be interesting. What happens to the principal players on those teams after the trade yesterday? We will dive into NHL free agency with Pat Kerrane and talk about Canada Day with Jacob and how are we celebrating. And let's go. Risers, fallers, and the obligatory Cowboys running back analysis. Mike Shope with our heroes, Pat Kerrane, Jacob Sanderson, and eventually Davis Mattek. This is ADP Chasing, July 1st, 2025.
ADP Chasing is for when you watch Ship Chasing, you go, these guys are just football guys.
I have my 4% exposure blanket.
Stay poor.
Actually back in if it's Achane.
Stare into our crystal ball. Close your eyes. All your entries are going to lose anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
You're not going to tell me how this went. I was here.
It's anti-cabal. It's anti the best ball thought leaders. I'm obviously lying to some degree because, I have a lot of both of these guys.
It's the most disgusting pick you can make. But, man.
Morning, guys. Happy Canada Day to Jacob.
Rock mug. That is the nicest thing you ever done for me.
Wow.
I feel so celebrated by Canada. Yeah, curling. Curling is actually the best TV sport in the world. People sleep on curling, but you want a good time, just sit there on the couch with some friends, and you go up. You can be the telestrator. You go up to the TV. You're like, here's what I would call. It's a good time. You guys got to watch more curling.
That's the one with the brooms. They gotta.
Yeah, I curled. I curled for 6 years.
Wow.
If we're not going to lose Pat through hockey, we'll definitely run the risk of losing him through curling.
I'm more intrigued by curling.
Honestly, professional curler.
No, I couldn't name a single. Maybe Jacob Sanderson. Did you ever go pro? That's my best bet.
No, I did not. Okay.
Well, Jacob, you have a favorite? You have a favorite?
Oh,
man or
woman?
Woman?
Jennifer Jones is the
Winnipeg
is the GOAT. She curled at my home club, and she won 8 Canadian titles.
I met Brett Lang last year. I've texted you a
nice.
couple of pictures from events, the one at Maple Leaf Gardens.
Yeah.
There is a maple leaf at the bottom of this mug, but I have to drink the coffee
Shope is
first.
breaking up for me. I don't know. Is that a problem for anyone but me?
No, I got full show.
Okay. All right. Well,
is that a bit because I'm talking about curling and
honestly, no. You're my internet's helping me out. When you started talking about curling, you just it was silent and you were still. And I was like,
you must have a setting. You must have a setting. All things Canadian, you must have a setting to sort of breaking up, not working for me. Davis will be here later. Jacob, how are we celebrating today? National holiday.
Yeah, nothing crazy. I think I'll probably head to the beach after this. Meet up with some friends. I don't know, maybe just drink some maple syrup. We'll see. I'm Mike too, but I have so much faith in Mike's ability to ace Canadian trivia. Could either of you name the first Canadian Prime Minister who oversaw our creation of the country on July 1st, 1867?
No,
Pearson.
of course not.
Not Pearson. That's about 100 years too late.
Come on,
he
Shope.
was a great Canadian Prime Minister. How about
Canada's
this?
right there. It's right there.
How about this? Other than Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney, Pat Kerrane, can you name one other Canadian Prime Minister?
How about that mayor that did a bunch of blow? Does that count?
That's
something?
Toronto. Rob Ford. That's Toronto. The late Rob Ford.
Stephon Diggs of mayors.
Did he make it to prime minister eventually?
No, he did not. He died shortly after that.
Jacob,
he died. Oh, no.
I have a favorite prime minister,
is
but
now the premier of Ontario.
All right,
Doug Ford. I have a favorite
prime minister,
but it has nothing to do with politics. Like all of my, we'll get to politics in a second when we talk about the Cowboys. But Mulrooney was the first Canadian prime minister when I was a kid. Like Reagan and Mulrooney went together, so that's he was not the first. And of course, Pierre Trudeau, the most glamorous and very exciting
Pierre Trudeau,
prime minister.
I mean, I wasn't anywhere close to being born, but everything I've read seems like he just ruled. Seems like he was a cool guy. Mulroney seems a little less cool to me, but
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he was also a prime minister. Sir John A. Macdonald was the first Canadian prime minister.
Johnny McDonald. Damn, that's a pretty badass Canadian name. Sounds pretty American, to be honest. You guys look into that? Is he actually American? Johnny McDonald?
Well, he was
American ass name.
You've got to read up on Pierre Trudeau's wife, Justin Trudeau's mother, because she's a lot to read about. Well, keeping with the politics theme, Pat, slide 1. Apparently, as I read in the chat last week, we talk about the Cowboys running backs every week, and I guess it's just people playing politics. I mean, this is what you do not want to bring up at your dinner table or whatever you're doing for the 4th. Now that Jacob has left the room for the moment, this is what we don't want to be talking about because it's politically motivated. What is going on here, Pat? So I did read in the chat last week, as I mentioned, Cowboys running backs. I guess we talk about this all the time. Didn't realize it, but yeah, this is good.
I can't make out anything you're saying. Hopefully Jacob heard that. I'm going to reload, and hopefully I'll be able to hear you.
Okay,
Jacob,
well that's
good?
it.
This is the political alignment chart of Cowboys running back.
Yes.
All right, that alerted to me, which I guess was also true for the entire mini-sode. So that's unfortunate that I had the wrong mic input. And then I spent about 5 minutes trying to figure out why I had the wrong mic input selected, and I realized it was because my mic wasn't plugged in eventually. So,
working out the kinks.
Covered that mystery. I see this. This rules. So we've got Hunter Lufke. Okay, so Hunter Lufke is like the Tom Cotton here, and we've got Phil Maffa is maybe, or Javante's I guess on the edge. So that's like the Lisa Murkowski. They might be able to get her to vote against the big beautiful bill. Phil Maffa,
I think it's a little further over. I think it's kind of one of these.
Javante's a little further over.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So he's like Bill Cassidy. He was like thinking about voting against RFK.
Yeah, but he's gonna do whatever they
cancel
say.
the vaccine, so he did it.
Yeah.
Jaydon Blue is like in this graph looks kind of like a Hakeem Jeffries, like a just right down.
I would say he's probably like Chuck
line.
Schumer. Just
Chuck Schumer.
It's just not that inspiring, but
okay.
He's there.
All right,
he's there.
Doesn't really have the track record of it.
I just want Davis to come back now to get really mad that I just called Jaydon Blue Chuck Schumer.
Miles Sanders
He'll find out.
Kind of like a grizzly old but left wing, maybe like an Ed Markey type of guy, and then Cavante Turpin. I mean, clearly none other than
that's Mom Donnie, baby. That's Mom Donnie. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does all of that mean? Anything we do here?
Actually, nothing at all.
That doesn't mean anything.
Did you guys know? Did you guys know that people are saying we talk about the Cowboys every week? Last week I might have said something.
They're the
like,
new Giants receivers. The Cowboys running backs are the new Giants receivers.
None of this actually matters or will be valuable, but it's
right. Is it that interesting?
Damn, it isn't fun to talk about.
Interesting. Hunter Lubke. How did that happen to this show? I don't even know, but I guess that's also what we do. The deep dive names.
Hunter Lipke's like he's so far to the right that he's like fascinating. I like want to look more into it. Like, oh wow, you think that's pretty interesting. Maybe
like
this
Carlson.
No. That's a different path. That's a different branch.
It's somebody whose name could get us
in the woods kind of vibe.
It's someone whose name could get us.
He's like making his own food. He's got like a trap door with a bunch of canned goods and stuff. That's you've turned back the clock. It's 1850 in your mind, and I've got some questions. Like I'm going to sit down. You've got some good bourbon. That you've been working on.
Wow.
Let's chat.
Suddenly he's like
said Phil Maga.
Yes.
Maga.
Suddenly, Lupke has become Unabomber adjacent on this.
Yeah.
Star-crossed
but not
show.
Non-violent, of course.
Non-violent, right?
Yeah. The Hunter Lupke horseshoe theory.
As far as I think our conversations go, Jacob, you're the Miles Sanders guy.
I'm the Miles Sanders guy. Becoming less and less the Miles Sanders guy as his ADP approaches the 160s.
Sure.
So I'm becoming I got my bags packed and I'm good
guy with Miles Sanders, I think, but I've still been mixing him in at his current ADP. I think I wish Davis was here for this because I feel like he really would have appreciated this. I listened to your guys' great episode with Gretch on the rookie running backs, which also featured a long Cowboys running back discussion, as with every episode of this channel.
As a ship chasing episode does.
And I feel like people that don't play enough Devy, or maybe play the appropriate amount of Devy, which is to say none at all, don't have quite enough appreciation for the arc of Jaydon Blue. So like Jaydon Blue,
all right,
high 4-star prospect. Like he comes in and he is like a dude. And it is like him, and it's Bijan, and there's all these other guys. Well, he was actually before Bijan, I think. And then they kind of keep bringing in these other high-star running
So does that
backs.
mean he was competing with Roshan?
Yeah, I think initially. And then eventually they bring in all these other guys, and like Bijan comes in, he eats his lunch. And then the last guy that was going to come in and eat, well, Jonathan Brooks comes in and eats his lunch. Like he should have been ahead of Jonathan Brooks, but he wasn't. I think that was the same class. And Brooks was a lower recruit. And then specifically, they bring in CJ Baxter. And CJ Baxter was absolutely going to eat his lunch. And then he gets hurt. And so all of the Devy people like me that had been high on Jaydon Blue once upon a time is like, okay, this is finally the Jaydon Blue season. And this is why, like, when you see, his carries, randomly they didn't give him any carries. It wasn't random. He was just given the job after CJ Baxter got hurt. And then he was really bad at the job. So they were like, do we have anyone else? And they were like, we have this random guy named Trey Wisner. And then he's not that good either. But he was clearly a better runner than Blue. And then Blue just like nosedived and got phased out of the running portion of the offense over the course of the year. But Blue is legitimately good as a pass catcher. So they like used him in that role. But that's why like the idea that he had like these 20 carry games at Texas, it's like, it's literally he did what the Nyheim Hines season was, which was like Marlon Mack got hurt. They were like, Nyheim Hines, can you run the ball? And they were like, no. And then they were like, how about Jordan Wilkins? And that was what happened to him at Texas. So like his carries existed solely because they had no other choice. And then eventually they found one, even where it seemed like none was available. He's not a runner.
This sounds like Donovan Edwards to me.
Yes, it is kind of. He is kind of Donovan Edwards. Yeah, that's exactly
Donovan Edwards.
Donovan Edwards, the Michigan back, and then Khalil Mullings came in and kind of took over some of the early down stuff because Edwards stinks as a runner and is a good pass catcher in kind of a different way than Blue. He's not like the explosive guy. He's more like a reliable, receiving element. But that all sounds pretty bad to me.
As a runner, absolutely. The other thing that I'll say in Blue's defense, though, if you watch his touchdown catch against Texas A&M, it is like one of the most impressive running back touchdown catches you'll ever see.
Never go back.
It was like wheel route on the sideline, like looking like Santonio Holmes in the Super Bowl. Like the guy's got legit wide receiver skills. He's just not a running back, but he is a football player.
He's just not a running back. Sounds like a great 12th round best ball pick, right? That's what we want. Yeah.
Well,
cool.
What, Jacob, then what is, and we have a good slide coming up. I was just about to join the chat to be able to get Pat's attention to move to the next, but what is the optimal Dallas offense then?
Right, that is your best bet, Show. That is.
I tried, but it was just too hard.
Jacob started doing his own research on Miles Sanders and is finding some interesting stuff.
What should Dallas's
great comments in there?
If we could, line Dallas up, what would it look like?
What does that mean? What do you mean?
My God.
Well, like you have Jaydon Blue, we have these issues.
Right.
What do we want?
I have to accept their current depth chart. I can't make any trades.
No, you can't make any trades.
Can't make any
because will they?
Probably not. I would start. Well, first of all, I would have like a plus 17 PROE. I would start Miles Sanders, I think, and I would give him like 7 carries. And then I would use Turpin for like a lot of bullshit, and I'd probably give him like 2 or 3 jet sweeps. I think I'd give Blue 2 or 3 jet sweeps, but I would also use him a lot in the receiving game on like angle routes and screens and stuff. And then I would stick Javante's fat ass out there on 3rd and 8.
Can he block? Blue? No, I mean that's not a part of it either, right?
He's okay. I think he can do it okay because like he played on a lot of third down situations. I don't know if his grades are good. I think they're bad, but he was trusted in that role. I think he can block okay.
I am now resorting to calling Pat on the phone to get him to move to the next slide. I'm going to try that here just real quick.
Yeah, give me a call.
I
would say Javonte, and Javonte's the guy I'm least interested for best ball because he's not good. But I think if I were running the team, I'd say Javonte, you're out there, you're going to pass block, you're going to be Daria Gumbawale for us. We're going to, all the 2-minute drill stuff, that'll just be you. And then I'm just like going to do early down rotations with literally everybody else and see if we can get someone with some juice. I don't know who that person would be, but like I would probably see what Maffa has. I would see what Sanders is not good either. Turpin, Blue, Lipke, like I would give all these guys the rock and see if we can get someone running hot hand theorem. Also, I would be signing anybody who got cut. Like I would be scouring the waiver wire and trying to bring in some more bodies. I mean, the idea that they kind of feel like they've like figured out running back is just wrong. Like they haven't. Yeah, I don't get it. All right, next slide. Shopes hinted, I think, once or twice that when you're able.
Running backs drafted in the 5th round or earlier with a sub 10th percentile career dominator rating since 2020. We'll read that again at some point. Jaydon Blue, Roshan Johnson, Dameon Pierce, Snoop Connor, Trey Sermon, Kene Nwangwu, and Ramondre Stevenson. Okay.
Kene Nwangwu might be a decent comp for Jaydon Blue.
He just ended up being sort of stuck in a kickoff return role with Minnesota.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Well, I guess I would say, this slide would make actually a pretty compelling case that the college committee backs, you can find guys who are actually more talented than their production would have shown.
Yep.
Stevenson really popped actually in yards per route run, and he had some really interesting kind of like per carry numbers, tackle breaker. Pierce was a big time elusive rating guy, I believe. At least he was in Houston. I'm not 100% sure if he was in college, but that was like his thing. Yeah, he was like a tackle breaker.
Coming out.
Florida.
Sermon was also kind of like shifty, could make guys miss. That was like his rep coming out.
Didn't do that in the NFL though.
Did not do that in the NFL. And then Roshan had the same kind of like, oh, you're Bijan's backup now. He's never really done anything in the pros, but he's a number 2, I guess.
I feel like most of the Roshan hype was just like you can pass block and your starter was good. So who's to say you're bad?
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, this would give some hope, I'd say.
If Dallas traded a 2032 7th for Dameon Pierce and a 2033 7th, what are we doing with Dameon Pierce? Like he still exists. He's still in the universe.
I would love Dameon Pierce to be on the Cowboys. I think he would immediately become their best running back.
Right?
Maybe like 3 years ago, Pierce. I think he's.
Do we even know what's the difference? Right.
Isn't the difference just the scheme? Like what? Like he gets out of the confines of the zone scheme, and all of a sudden, if we see 2022,
maybe
Pierce,
I don't know. You never know. Like with what is he been doing? I haven't seen Dameon Pierce in a couple years.
He might be in the best shape of his life.
He looks really good on kick returns. Like he had like a 100-yard kick return touchdown a while ago.
All right, I'm sold. Bring him to Dallas.
Just anybody that we've ever liked would be an upgrade. Because all they have is running backs we've never liked. Okay.
Maybe Bishop Sankey would finally succeed here. Give him a shot.
It's time to find out. Risers and fallers. Or do you want to do the Dolphins-Steelers trade first? Up to you.
I think we should do the Dolphins Steelers trade.
Let's
give the people the news.
There you go. Jonnu Smith to Pittsburgh. It was, the insiders had a tough time with this one. First of all, you had the original Adam Schefter tweet from like a month ago. Pittsburgh is looking to trade for Jonnu Smith, and then he came back with, no, they're not, which was weird. And then maybe they still were. And then yesterday it was Jalen Ramsey to the Steelers, but they didn't know that, weirdly, that Minkah Fitzpatrick was going back to Miami, and then Jonnu Smith came later. So this was a struggle for the guys who get fed all the information somehow. This is the Steelers slide. Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth. Were either of you guys, I think, drafting Jonnu Smith much at all before this?
No, I had 2% only, so I was fortunate.
Yeah, we went through like a phase where we were into him a bit, but basically once the rumors came out that like he could go to Pittsburgh, I cooled on him. There's sort of this, it was a very fragile bet. And so once you start to think more about the downside of it, I think in the big board, I might've been drafting him in the big board I had 10%. So I was more open to him there. And then I have 5% in all of my post-draft stuff. So not out, but not a big target, especially like things were kind of headed in, a scary direction or a scarier direction. And it's like, man, you kind of need everything to be like it was last year for it really to pay off. So it just got harder. It was a harder and harder bet to make. And then last week, I published an article on the tight ends, and I almost took this part out where I talked about what if Jonnu Smith goes to the Steelers. So like, it's not going to happen. It seems like that's blown over. But I was like, if that were to happen, it would be absolutely devastating for both Smith and Freiermuth. They, more than I realized, really kind of have a similar type of role where they're like this tight end who doesn't actually play all the time, especially on play action stuff. And then you have Darnell Washington, who's been getting hype from Arthur Smith, and he's just this gigantic run blocking type, the exact type of guy that you would bring in for like power sets. And so I think out of 12, I'm not sure we see both guys, like that's kind of the bad part here. I mean, it's certainly in some 12, in some 12 personnel, you would see both guys.
They're going to play an
sets.
amount of 13 personnel that you've never seen.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. It's not ideal. Like that, these guys I think really cannibalize each other. I think Freiermuth now becomes kind of Cole Kmet-ish. In terms of when you'd think about him, maybe a little bit better than that, but not much. And Smith is kind of down where we had Freiermuth in the ranks.
I don't know what it does for
bad.
fantasy, but I think the Bills are interesting to use as a sort of a prototype for where we might be headed a little bit further this year in the NFL, where last year Knox was on the field a lot, not really doing anything useful in fantasy. Kincaid, targets per route run were there, but, whether he's a tight end in your mind or not, he's on the field a lot. And then you had a lineman named Alec Anderson, a sixth lineman who would report eligible and be on the field constantly, and they would run the ball constantly. And wouldn't Arthur Smith want to try to elevate that? So with Pittsburgh not having a clear wide receiver too, I mean, to put it mildly, I think we see a lot of all of them. And what it does for us in fantasy is, I don't know, it's not good.
I think the closest thing you'll get to what their offense should look like personnel-wise, I think, will be the last Arthur Smith Atlanta season. So you had Drake London was the wide receiver 1, ex-wide receiver. They didn't really have any obvious wide receiver 2. They just kind of rotated in like Van Jefferson, Kaderil Hodge. I forget like all the other dudes that they had there, but it was basically the London show.
Ray.
And then at tight end, they had Pruitt as like the strict inline run blocking tight end, and they had Jonnu and they had Pitts. And generally, like in their run formations, they would either play in 13 or they would play Pruitt with Jonnu, sometimes Pitts. And then they would pass a lot out of like this quasi 12 where they would have one of Jonnu or Pitts split out and the other would be on the line. And then they'd have London and they'd have like Van Jeff or something. So I think we'll see a decent amount of both. I mean, I think their combined route share will probably still be like 130-ish. Because I think we'll see Washington as kind of the Pruitt and then Smith and as the Smith. Or maybe even Smith as the Pitts and Freiermuth as the Smith, something like that. Because it's a little different. Like the way he used Smith in Tennessee, they didn't do as much of the 13 stuff. They did sometimes, but they had Brown and they had Corey Davis, so they played more in 12. And they would staple Ferkser as the Y and Jonnu as the F. But then in Atlanta, Jonnu was kind of a hybrid YF. Anyway, it's probably too far in the weeds. The way I would look at it is Metcalf's the one, and then Jonnu and Freiermuth are both going to probably project between like 50 to 75% routes with some level of variance between which one of them gets there.
Yeah, I think
I
it
have
might
a pretty
be
similar.
lower.
I don't know about that.
I think we could be talking about like 40 to 65 or something like that. Maybe 75's in play for one of them.
So.
But
I think 40 to 65 is too low. I think they're going to both. I think their combined route shares are going to be a good chunk above 100. Because I mean, Jonnu and Pitts, I think combined for about 120% of routes that year, and I think it'll be somewhat similar. We'll see. It's bad though. I just
like with a Darnell Washington there and how much they want to run. Yeah, I think I just worry about like there. It reminds me a little bit of the Ravens last year where you had Charlie Kolar coming in for like 13 and some of their heavier stuff. Sure. Like Andrews wasn't actually playing. They were using Kolar and Likely for some of their 12, like 12 with a fullback. They didn't tend to play Andrews. And so it was just like the situation where actually Andrews and Likely were both running fewer routes than we would like. And it's like that's like the Darnell Washington, there's some comments like he's just out there. He's not doing anything, Yeah, he's like probably not going to catch a lot of balls, but he is going to run some routes on play action that we wish one of these guys would run because they could actually earn a target, but they're not going to be out there. And then he's probably going to steal some touchdowns. He only had one touchdown last year, but we see, some of these guys who are just, out there. Like Foster Moreau had 5 touchdowns last year. He's one of these dudes who's just like, yeah, that's when you look at last year, Jonnu Smith had 8 touchdowns and Freiermuth had 7. That's the part where I'm like, they're not combining for 15 touchdowns. They have now they're going to cannibalize each other. They're competing for those 7 or 8 touchdowns that Freiermuth would have had access to. So now we're talking about both guys kind of more like the Evan Ingram style thing where you're like, well, I hope you catch a lot of balls because you're not getting in the end zone very often. That would be one of my big concerns with them, in addition to the routes.
They did put out a 13 at the second highest rate in the NFL last year, 16%. I'm willing to bet that goes up to like 25 to 30. I think that we'll see a truly 1948 amount of 13 personnel. But overall, I agree with Pat. The only difference I have, I'm looking at Pat's rankings. I see them in front of us right now. He has Rodgers 157, DK 50, Jonnu 168, Fries 199. My only material difference, I just have the 2 tight ends a little bit closer together. I have Jonnu a little lower than you. I have him at 175. I have Freiermuth a little higher than you. I have him at 183. But overall, pretty similar. And then I have Metcalf at 52. I have Rodgers 165.
Why not? Jonnu dropping a little bit on the last up. I think some ADP shuffling, but he's down to 170 or will be in the next update. So yeah.
Why not just keep Justin Fields and blow us all away with your running game? Why not just do that? But that did not happen. No. Yeah. To me,
they wouldn't commit.
Amazing.
They wouldn't commit. They thought they were better than him.
No, they didn't want to. But how cool would that be if they had with this sort of setup?
Well, they kind of wanted to. They wanted to keep him this year, but they wouldn't keep him with like the promise that he would be the unquestioned starter.
Exactly. They wouldn't commit to their best quarterback option by a mile.
You couldn't look away if they had. I mean, it would just be so interesting. So bottom line, is Jonnu Smith a buy now?
I don't know. Well, we'll see where he goes, but not for a long time. It takes a long time for guys to fall on underdog, and I don't think he's going to get down to where I would consider him maybe never, but certainly not for like a month.
Pete and I timed out on Best Ball Breakfast yesterday on Jonnu about 6 picks past ADP, and it was the saddest thing that happened to me since we timed out and took out Kamara. So
since Kamara, yeah, right.
Since Kamara, yeah.
Will we see Jonnu Smith in the last call streets at some point?
You'll see Freiermuth.
You'll see
Freiermuth. I don't know if you'll see Jonnu or not. It wouldn't shock me if you did. I don't think you will, though. No, because I think there is going to be a narrative that this is Arthur Smith's guy. He was productive with him in Tennessee. He played him over Kyle Pitts in Atlanta. Not like fully over, but we were like, what's happening? Like, why is Jonnu Smith getting run here? This is unfortunate.
Right.
He was honestly the better fantasy player for a big stretch there. So I think I think everyone probably has a little bit more confidence in Jonnu in this offense than Freiermuth. That probably keeps him at least, in the 180s or whatever.
One thing about the Baltimore comp, Pat, is that team is always ahead. And I wonder, like, if the Steelers are losing, it never happens, but we go into every season thinking about the possibility that Pittsburgh just falls apart. This year, they've had a couple of seasons where what were they last year? Were they 10-1 or something stupid last year? Like their schedule is pretty easy in the top half. And then later it's Buffalo and Baltimore twice. And like it gets Detroit, I think, is on there. So they could be like 7-2. And it wouldn't be that amazing because of who they play. But if they get down, what do they do? I mean, that's when you wonder if it all just sort of blows up.
One other thing, I've been doing the week-to-week stuff, writing the walkthrough and trying to predict what these teams are going to do. A big part of what I look at is like pass rate over expected and trying to figure out how these offenses are going to interact and like what the game plans are going to be. This team's coming in, an Arthur Smith Atlanta team coming in as a big dog. The other team passes a bunch. Everyone passes against this defense. This is the spot. This is where we would finally see the Falcons open things up. And then they like have a minus 10% pass rate over expected and they play ball control. Like that has been my history of trying to predict this Arthur Smith offense. Is just like every single time that you think there's a setup where they couldn't possibly run the ball, they run the ball. So I would be really wary.
He will not be denied.
I would really be wary of betting on circumstance to push the Steelers to the air. It is very hard to push Arthur Smith to the air, and this is only going to make that tougher. They bring in another tight end. They can play more bully ball. They can take Calvin Austin, little baby Calvin Austin off the field. Roman Wilson can go back to the netherworld.
Sticking 13, baby.
It's sticking 13. So,
do you remember that game? I forget what it was, but it was on like whatever the version of NFL Films is that exists today. And they were down like 14 in the third quarter. And, most coaches would be like, I guess we've got to throw the ball. And Arthur Smith just starts like stalking up and down the sideline. He's like, we're going to run the piss out of the ball. We're going to run the piss out of this thing. And then they like came out and they ran on like 8 consecutive plays. Like his view is like, if we're down in the second half and we need to get back in the game, that's when we establish the run. Like that is,
it's like
plan A.
Thing, I guess.
Plan B is just plan A
harder. Back in the game. We run to salvage our dignity.
Plan A harder. Yeah, that's right.
Plan A harder.
What an arrival, Davis! What an arrival.
I was hoping we would still be doing the Jonnu thing because I think I discovered the true tell that big fantasy football media is unwilling to actually cover. Anyone want to guess the total raw number of snaps Darnell Washington played last year?
Yeah, I'll take a guess.
Go for it.
I'm gonna guess 423.
Not even in the neighborhood. You're off by 30%.
Wow.
He played 650 snaps.
Oh my god!
Does anyone want to guess? Does anyone want to guess Jonnu?
What are you talking about?
Go look.
What?
Go look.
630 snaps.
Go look.
I believe you.
I believe you, but I still want to see it with my own eyes.
Okay, now does anyone want to guess?
Funny if you lied.
It'd be really funny if I lied.
Like 8.
Does anyone also?
Yes, it's 182.
8.
Career high seasonal PFF run blocking grade from Jonnu Smith. So he's been in the NFL since 2017. The best run blocking grade.
630th.
56 is the exact number. Anyone want to guess the number?
Embarrassing.
Get a life.
Okay. Does anyone want to guess the number of times Jonnu Smith
drop the mic.
got penalized on a run block last year?
Got penalized?
What? Jonnu Smith get penalized on a run block?
Yes.
11.
6 times?
6 times.
Oh, too good.
What?
Let me check and make sure.
What's
let me
happening?
check and make sure I have the 6 times.
I'm so
what? Did you know that? Like, did you?
Pat
have
is
that
using the
memorized?
extra 3 hours on the East Coast to just do that much more preparation. It's really working to his benefit.
This is all useless. This isn't going to help me at all.
Did you know
That's
that?
right.
No, I just guessed.
Okay. All right.
And by the
Both were
way,
guesses.
in your head,
Oh,
you
that
might
no,
be
I
saying,
don't believe for a second that the first one was a guess. You knew.
No,
his
I
deep
listen.
run block grade. You would have
I don't
looked
know.
at
I
it
didn't
from
know
article.
Jonnu's run block grade, but I know that you would be surprised how many tight ends are floating right around that 55 or 56 number, which is in the vicinity of good enough. It's not a problem to be there. It's not impressive, but it's not a problem. So I figured he was in that you could do it range.
I've got more. Jonnu is not going to play as much as people think he's going to play stuff here. So first off, 148 snaps out wide for Jonnu last year. People are like, oh, he's a wide receiver. 148 wide receiver snaps last year is like nothing for Jonnu Smith. But really, the more important thing here is I see this a lot. God, they're just going to play him as a wide receiver. The issue is Jonnu can't run wide receiver routes, and neither can Freiermuth. They are at their best 5 to 10 yards from the line of scrimmage, to which people say, what are they going to do? Play Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin? To which I say, yes, they absolutely will, because those guys can run real wide receiver routes. They can run a post. They can run a 13-yard out. Jonnu and Freiermuth are not agile and quick enough to do that.
Well, Davis, is it fair to ask whether the Steelers know Jonnu Smith's limitations as well as Pat does, or yourself? Like, what are they doing this for?
I don't know. What are they doing anything for?
No. I think it's pretty clear what they're doing it for. They are, I think, correctly assessing their wide receiver stink. So what they're going to do is the whole offense is going to be built out of like bubble screens and like the worst jet motion you've ever seen, like Pat Freiermuth and jet motion. Like it's going to be so many 4-yard throws that your mind is going to explode. You know who it's kind of secretly bullish for? It's kind of secretly bullish for Warren, because if you're going to build the whole offense out of RPOs where the P is 100% selection rate, I mean, Warren needs to be on the field more than Caleb Johnson does.
I mean, I like Warren, so that's
Right.
That's nice. I think this actually could be good for Caleb Johnson in the sense they're going to be running so much heavy personnel stuff that, they're really
I got more Bear statistics. Highest
Stand back,
rate,
Pat. Stand back.
highest rate of in the last 2 years, highest rate of plays with at least but as many as 4 tight ends on the field.
Wait, what? 4 tight ends on the field? Isn't that
4
just
plus
three,
tight
three,
ends?
sorry.
3 plus
Sorry.
tight ends.
12,
Okay.
12 plus 13 rate.
Well, that's 2. 12 is 2.
Right. And then 13
Okay.
is 3. So
2 plus tight ends.
correct.
okay? 2 plus. What's the highest rate? Like, you want the team or you want the number?
Number. I actually forget the team. I looked it up yesterday.
It's like
Okay.
Got the team.
I would say like 52%.
50. Yeah,
Bill did a
53%.
lot.
48%.
Yeah.
It was some shitty team in 2023. It might have been the Patriots. I forget who it was. Point being, this whole they're running 12 as their base.
Not Arthur Smith's Falcons?
Arthur Smith's Falcons were super. Okay, now I got to pull it up. 12
Are you-
personnel
Pat,
tendencies.
Jacob, are you guys curious what appointment David just came from? Was it something about the Steelers?
It was about
censure?
this, I
I
think.
think he
Yeah.
had
With
an
Arthur
appointment
Smith.
with a
He
Steelers.
he went to his local FedEx, and then they were just laying out the
I'm
beauty
mad
of
that he's not
football.
sharing the PowerPoint slide he put together for that presentation.
They have a pamphlet right in the
Yeah.
front when you get to FedEx, just
Yeah.
explaining how many snaps Darnell Washington played and how many times they were in 13.
Dave's is making all the
I would
FedEx
love
employees
that.
guess.
By the
Johnny
way,
Smith's run blocking
It
grade.
was. I was at the dermatologist. Is where I was at. I'm getting I'm at that age. I'm at that age.
Oh, yeah.
You need to start going. The answer, it was Arthur Smith's 2023 Falcons. 48% of their plays had at least 2 tight ends.
Look at that.
Point for Jacob.
Last season, the most 12 anyone played was the Raiders, because they have Brock Bowers and they have Michael Mayer. Then if you add 13 into that, you get to the Steelers were pretty heavy, 13 relatively. speaking compared to the Sense League, but they actually didn't play as much 12 as you would think. I wonder what the reason.
How was Washington on the field so much and that didn't compute to that stat?
I assume it's very specific plays, but the Steelers only ran 25% of their plays last year out of 12.
He probably also played ahead of Freiermuth, at some points.
I was going to say that's probably part of it.
He would play always in 13. He would play in 12, and then they would play 11 heavy on some rundowns.
Yeah. So the chat is saying seems like Arthur wants to run a lot of 12, and I think the brain has a hard time reasoning these two things. It's certainly true that Arthur would like to play a lot of 12. It is certainly not true that playing a ton of 12 is going to get you the necessary passing statistics that you need to justify drafting Jonnu Smith.
But also, like, to your point, Darnell Washington just played 600 snaps. 12 does not mean necessarily that it's Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith. There's going to be 12 with one of those guys on the bench, which is bad. I will push back on the out wide routes just real quick. I mean, he had 120 routes out wide. That was second among all tight ends last year, behind only Kelsey, just ahead of Bowers, just ahead of Laporta, just ahead of Pitts. So he did run a lot of routes out wide. I take your larger point that it's still not that many routes, and so he's not going to go play wide receiver for them, but he can do that about as well as any tight end.
Jonnu will be a super hit if he scores a Robert Tonyan level of touchdowns. Jonnu will be just a total Jatavian Sanders-esque anchor on your team if he scores 3. And if you think he scores 11, you should take him. And if you think it's more likely he scores 3, you probably shouldn't take him.
Where does he settle? Where does he settle in ADP, you think?
Tight end 18. Him and Kyle Pitts are shaking hands.
Okay.
Then I'm out. I'm taking 0 at that price.
Yeah, that's too much.
Do you guys think Miami makes a next move at tight end? Like yesterday, we had some fun with Pitts for this.
But it doesn't sound like they. What's confusing to me is that the reporting is that they're now going to try to. What I don't understand is why they wouldn't have already determined what that move would be before they traded Jonnu Smith. Like, it seems like they traded Jonnu Smith and we're like, nice trade, guys. And then someone was like, should we get another tight end? And they're like, good idea.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Anyone know a guy?
I don't understand why they weren't like, we're thinking about trading Jonnu Smith. Let's canvass the league. Let's find out our options. And then once they come to an agreement with the Steelers, like, it should have been like 1 second later, they like have the conversation, and it's like, now we've traded for whoever.
I like that, except maybe trading Jonnu Smith was how they could have traded Jalen Ramsey. Like if that had to be sort of together, then maybe we'll get a second thing.
That might have been it. Yeah, they might have just kind of thrown it in. I mean, like Michael Mayer would be very fun. If they could go get him. Cole Kmet would probably make some sense for them to try to target. I was looking at Dallas Goedert. They can't really trade Dallas Goedert anymore.
Goedert restructured to stay.
Yeah, they have like 4. They literally has void years going through 2029, and I think the void years hit the 2026 cap altogether if they trade him now. So I think he's staying.
Not going to trade him.
Kincaid for a third.
I mean,
are you ready, Shope? Are you ready to trade his lava lamp knee for a third round pick?
Oh, I mean, look, no one's giving a third for that bum.
He's so blocked here. I mean, why not? But before we flip,
they need a tight end who can block in Miami. Like that's to me why this was a decent move from Miami, was to get rid of Jonnu, because he was like part disease and part medicine last year. Like, they couldn't block anyone, so they had to build the whole plane out of this 5-yard passes to this F tight end. Part of why they couldn't block anyone is they're constantly playing this F tight end as a Y. So I want them to get a tight end who can block. I would like Mayer. I would like Kmet. I'd rather than if they were to trade for Buffalo tight end, I would rather than trade for Dawson
Knox. Yeah,
but Knox is the third highest player on the team, and he's highest paid player on the offense.
I got more stats.
Starting tight end is now Pharaoh Brown.
Pharaoh Brown.
I don't think he's drafted.
Jacob, I got more stats, brother. The 2023 Miami Dolphins, first in the NFL in points, second in the NFL in yards, first in the NFL in yards per carry, first in the NFL in net adjusted yards per attempt. That's what I want them to
get back to.
Their tight end that season. Anyone want to hazard?
Smythe.
35 receptions, 380 yards, 0 tuds.
Yeah,
Completely
and-
irrelevant to the Mike McDaniel offense.
and about 12% exposure for Pat Carane. Carane was taking on DraftKings specifically.
a truly for the Mike McDaniel offense to function, it's super relevant. But I wanted to make one more point.
Mostert 20
about
touchdowns
Steelers.
or something that year, by the way. Like there might be that factor.
Well,
as
because
well.
they have a fullback that they use, so he takes a lot of the tight end stuff.
Yeah.
Here it comes.
So that fullback, that was a point I wanted to make. Remember
Yeah,
that
Alec
early in the
Ingold.
offseason, it was rumored that the Pittsburgh Steelers wanted Kyle Spellcheck, that he was going to be going there. They happened to sign a guy who I don't know, DJ Thomas Jones, a fullback from South Alabama, as an undrafted free agent. If there's a fullback in the mix with the Jonnu,
the
Washington,
Beats said they're
Freiermuth,
going to use Jonnu as a fullback. They said they're going to use him partially at the tight end, partially as a wide receiver, and partially as a fullback.
Yeah, this is bad. It's starting to feel a little Patriotsy, where it's just like these dudes are straight up ruining each other's outlooks now with Henry and Jonnu. Like it is starting to feel that way.
Aussie.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh. If you're invoking the name of Devin Asiasi in the year of our Lord 2025,
Remember Dalton?
I am. You were late, and I'm doing it. That's why. Metcalf. I'd like to get to Metcalf before we expire. Keep going if you have more, but I want to make sure
we make a comment. I just really agree with the point about what the Dolphins probably need is like a blocking tight. Their tight ends, like it's like Julian Hill. Like I'm like, who are these dudes again?
Yeah.
Like if they've been connected to Kyle Pitts, I think it would make more sense for them to go after Charlie Warner, the Atlanta, the guy that actually plays tight end for the Falcons, or like the one name. And I don't want this to happen because I have a lot of stacks. Because I think his price is actually pretty good. But Jake Ferguson is in the last year of his deal. That's the type of guy where I could see, because the Brevin Spanford or something is having a pretty interesting camp. I wonder if the Cowboys could go, we're good, actually. We have a dude, maybe we can offload Ferguson. We're not going to pay him anyway.
Wow.
And that could be the solution. I think that's.
But that would require the Cowboys to be like a front office that makes moves. Like in my mind, the Cowboys just have the phone off the hook at all times, and then it's just like, and in their mind, it's like, oh, like they don't ever think ahead. So to me, the most likely thing with Jake Ferguson is they'll just keep him, and then they'll walk him right to free agency, and then they'll lose him.
Yeah,
and that would be a tremor.
Then they'll just get the free agent and be like, wait, you want money? I'm like, no. Well, we got Luke Schoonmaker at home.
Julian Hill, by the way, the first ever Campbell University, which is a HBCU, first ever Campbell University player to make an NFL roster, was a high school quarterback. Julian Hill.
Good for him.
All right, naming some guys.
He's on a couple of my dynasty rosters, so that's that gives you an indication.
Anybody moving Metcalf either direction?
We really didn't. We really didn't change anything.
Kept him.
I moved him a couple spots down, but like, it's not a big difference to me, because if you just think about it as a target earner, it's like what's really the difference here? Like Jonnu and Freiermuth are pretty similar in terms of their own target opportunities. You're going to have more 12, so that means more of one of them and less of Calvin Austin, but it's like that also doesn't really affect Metcalf's target share all that much, so it's fine.
They'll probably run even more, probably, but when they do pass, he's like maybe the only receiver on the field sometimes, so that seems good.
Oh, dude, there's definitely going to be some 13 where it's just Metcalf out there.
Just Metcalf?
Oh, yeah. A lot.
Yeah, or 22, you get the fullback. I guess Jonnu's the fullback, Darnell and Freiermuth.
And Pruitt.
Oh, my God, is Pruitt on the team?
Yeah, he's on the team. He's always on the team.
He can't
Arthur
be.
Smith's like backing band.
He can't be.
No, he was last year, but he said
no, dude. It's Connor Hayward. Connor Hayward for sure plays a minimum of 17% of the Steelers' offensive snaps this year.
Pruitt was on the Steelers last year, and I assumed that they never would have got rid of him, but I guess Arthur Smith finally got rid of his binky. But he had originally followed him to 3 separate stops. Arthur Smith has the weirdest collection of players that he brings around with him. Like he has like Michael Pruitt and like Van Jefferson, and it's like why is he obsessed with like these really shitty players? But he is.
It is clearly toxic groupthink. that were.
Are you guys ready for when they sign Allen Lazard and it's 13 personnel, but DK isn't the wide receiver they use in 13?
Oh,
It's
come
Allen
on,
Lazard.
man.
Let's get ready. Let's get ready.
It's 13 personnel with Allen Lazard, Darnell Washington, Pat Freiermuth, and Connor Hayward, and Jonnu and Metcalf are over on the sideline just being like.
And Rodgers is into it.
I love this idea that this is going to be like, oh, dude, we're going all in. We made the trade. We traded for Jonnu. We traded for Jalen. And like, this is actually going to be the worst version of the Tomlin Steelers.
Oh, and the chat nailed it. The running back in that 13 personnel is Cordell Patterson.
Cordell Patterson.
They're going to start 6-2.
Oh.
They're going to start 6-2.
Oh,
just so you're prepared for all of this with Lazard or without Lazard. We've got a Dolphin slide too. Let's have a probably long overdue conversation about Devin Achane. He seems to have slipped through the cracks on, I think, in our conversations and in my drafts, if not yours. But I think, biggest reaction to the trade was we've been sleeping on Achane. Pat. So
yeah, Pat is a noted Achane hater, so please start with him.
Late first, early second. What are we doing?
That's a hater?
So I was a hater in the big board, big time hater.
Oh,
I thought he was a terrible pick, but he was going at like the 1-2 turn, and I was like, basically the only way Achane will be a really strong pick at the 1-2 turn is if they draft some bum like Ollie Gordon in the 6th round and don't address running back otherwise. Maybe they bring in Alexander Madison or some totally washed vet. And then, I don't know, they like trade Jonnu Smith to the Steelers and open up even more gadget targets for Achane because that's the only thing that kept him alive last year. We know they're not going to address the offensive line. So he just needs to live and feast on 1 million receptions. If all of that happens, then he'll be a good pick at the 1-2 turn. And look what has happened. Here we are. He's a good pick. Maybe not quite the 1-2 turn, but in that early second round, yeah, I'm in. I mean, we've been kind of quietly in on Achane since the draft. Not someone I'm like taking a ton of, but has not been like a guy that we want to fade. There's lots of guys there, and we take a lot of Bowers. If you're using leg up anything, you're going to get a lot of Bowers. So it makes it harder to take Achane, but that's not an Achane thing. It's a Bowers thing. I'm currently at 5% Achane. Bowers has made it harder to take him. I think he becomes a better pick here pretty clearly, and someone I want to be at least even with by the end of the tournament, if not ahead.
You can't start Bowers, Achane, right? You can't start with both, or not in that order.
well, you can. There's nothing stopping you.
But you wouldn't, or would you?
Well, I do crazy stuff like that sometimes. I don't let ADP restrict me. But yeah, you'd be foregoing like Genty basically. You'd just be doing like a Bowers Genty team. But
I'm just thinking receivers. Then like Mike Evans is your wide receiver 1, something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, I've done. Yeah, but that's all right. You know, it was optimal last year, I think, to probably have Darnell Mooney as your wide receiver 1. So surely Mike Evans can get it done.
I don't know. It seems a little pejorative. Pat, would you ever start a draft? Achane Bowers?
I guess I wouldn't. Will. Yeah, I wouldn't do it right now because I don't think. You know, I'd rather go CMC Bowers. I'd rather go CMC Bowers, but I don't. You know, whatever. Like, I don't think that's crazy, and I think that probably is something we'll see by the end. So yeah,
you can get there at receiver this way, is what you guys are all saying, or both saying.
Yeah. Because you can definitely do CMC Bowers. I've done that team for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
I want Genty Bowers.
I've done like Bijan Bucky like a few times.
I've got a bunch of like Bijan McBride Taylor. Or Gibbs McBride or Saquon McBride, you know. So I think you can.
Yeah, you can start running back.
You can start non-receiver 2 rounds. It's fine. I really like starting receiver as well, but you don't have to. You don't even have to take one.
Davis.
Yeah, I mean, let yourself feel the slap, man. Do a little Achane Bowers. Do a little. I mean, you want to talk about a slappy start. Achane Genty, brother. You're gonna be able to get that at the turn.
What's going on here? What's going on?
That
here?
might
What
be
happened
right
to
wing slappy
my
days.
guys.
I think you're out
What's
in the
going
woods.
on? We're starting.
That worked
40
on
point
me.
there.
I was excited about that.
That might be the Canadian thing. You know, a lot of
I think that's left wing slappy, or maybe it's a.
No,
it's like,
that's
it's
buddy.
both
That's
left and right.
Achane Genty is a left wing slappy facsimile of a right wing slappy start.
You know what it is? It's like when Fetterman, not current Fetterman, but when he was like pretending to care about people, and he was running in the Senate primary, and it was like he was doing left wing stuff, but he was doing it in like a hoodie. And
yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, like I'm like going to the rural town, and like I'm the everyman. Like that's.
But
like
he's like ultimately the kind of right wing, really. So
he is now. But I'm saying like it's like if you're at the beginning,
I think it's like when there's a settlement in the woods,
lane,
and it's like they're starting a new society, but you're like the people are kind of there for different reasons, but you're not quite sure why everyone's what the point of the society is going to ultimately be. But there's some true believers in something, and we're going to figure out what that thing is later.
Speaking of the woods, Davis wasn't too late for the Jonnu stuff, but he was too late for Jacob ripping off names of congressmen, not to mention Canadian prime ministers. That's unfortunate. You know, you can watch that back. And
you missed the Cowboys political spectrum, which is unfortunate because you really would have shined.
You were missed.
Really been in your wheelhouse.
Davis, I may or may not have compared Jaydon Blue to Chuck Schumer,
which he said you would have hated. Yeah, and
everyone involved should be offended by that.
What else on the Dolphins? Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, even Tua. Is there anything else movable here?
I mean, actionable? I think there's an interesting point to be made here on Jalen Waddle, which is so much of his role being reduced last year was as a result of nothing working in the offense, and this idea that Jalen Waddle needs to pump up the board. I think I moved him up 5 spots. I think I moved him to 50. Frankly, I was always of the category that Jonnu Smith was a Gary Barnidge, that it was just like a very specific circumstances of things that happened. So oddly, I think this idea like, oh, Jalen Waddle is a 4th round pick now. He goes right next to Jameson Williams. I don't hate it, or I don't like it. Like I much preferred the price before, because Waddle is such like a Rotoviz style player where if you like chop and slice his data
anymore.
in such
Sean
a way,
hates Waddle. Sean said he would consider drafting Jalen Waddle once Luther Burden is off the board.
I love Sean, man. What a
I mean, now, to be fair, Sean probably has Luther Burden ranked 30th.
Yeah.
So like,
you take Luther Burden in the 4th.
So it was literally like him and Gretsch were doing this thing, and Gretsch was like, he's like, I'm not sure about Waddle. I think I'm a little low on him. And then Siegel's like, well, we just got Burden in the 12th. And I think after he's gone, maybe that's where I'd start considering Waddle. And it was like, this is the perfect Siegel.
That is so pretty good. But
what's the problem?
Like, I think the clear thing with Waddle is that he can succeed if everything is kind of humming in the offense. But Achane and Hill, also this idea that Tyreek Hill should be in any way impacted by the presence of Jonnu Smith is very funny. Like either he's Tyreek Hill or he's not. Either his wrist is fine and his knee feels fine. Waddle, though, I do agree with this idea that Waddle is not the category of player who can be impacted by other guys on the field with him. Like Jonnu Smith is like a fine target earning tight end to some degree, and that can impact Waddle. Daigle had this tweet yesterday, 111 plays with Jonnu off the field and Reek, Waddle, and Achane on the field. All of them had a target share north of 22% on those 111 passing plays, which is like, yeah, that is basically what you would anticipate.
I do think there's something with what Jonnu exiting the offense is opening up some screen targets and design stuff. And I think that actually does help Waddle and Tyreek a little. Like it's marginal, but I think it's nice that there's this guy who he led all tight ends with 22 screen targets last year. McBride was at 18, then Kraft at 14, and then a bunch of dudes kind of, around like 10. So he got a bunch of screen targets, much more than you would expect for the typical tight end. Devon Achane led all players with 40. So you have this gimmicky, screen-based, designed look type of offense, which we were all familiar with from watching the Dolphins last year. Pulling out one of the guys who was involved there is probably good for Tyreek and Waddle. If they get another 5 screens each, like that's cool.
Right.
It's not like it doesn't change the fundamental bet, but I think it's still like somewhat helpful. My thing with Waddle is like the Tyreek stuff. And Jacob, I liked your article about how Tyreek's kind of a better managed pick because you get this boom bust bet that's still fairly expensive. And, if he's not the dude, it really blows up teams in best ball where you're trying to just stack a bunch of wins. But like Tyreek did have this insanely efficient season 2 years ago, and he was above 3 yards per route run in 2022 as well, which is also a Miami season. So we have 2 seasons of him posting outrageous efficiency and dusting Waddle in the process. And then he drops to 1.75 last year. But Waddle also fell off last year in a big way. And that's a part I feel like he gets a pass. He fell from 2.52 to 1.53.
No,
so he was worse than
played
Hill.
bad, like worse than the other guys played bad.
Yeah, so like I think he tends to get a pass. It's like, well, Waddle's young. He's 26.
Yeah.
He turns 27 in November. Hill's old, so his drop off means that he fell off potentially. That he's now dust. But Waddle would be the type of guy you'd expect to bounce back. To me, the story of last year was the offense wasn't performing the way they wanted. They went to Achane and Jonnu as kind of this dual engine of gimmicky stuff. And Waddle was hurt by that even more than Tyreek and wasn't able to step up during a Tyreek potential fall off year. So I don't know. I mean, we moved him up as well, but I'm kind of hoping, frankly, that Waddle ends up going in like the mid 4th, and I don't have to think about him that much again because I wasn't really
you've been
taking
out
him
on
in the
Waddle.
mid 5th.
I feel like I'm like the only guy in like my like circle of people that has been like in on Waddle. Although,
no, I've had Waddle ahead of ADP this whole time.
Oh, okay, good. There we go. Maybe it's just like from doing the DFS show with you last year.
Well, you couldn't help yourself last year,
and you just like constantly were like just begging me like each week, like please stop losing money on Jalen Waddle, please. And I didn't listen, and that was to my detriment.
Look at you two today.
What's this?
Look at you two today, just like
I know we're getting along today. I mean, I guess we should get along on Jalen Waddle because he's fast. So you
only player who runs a 4.2 that Jacob likes.
But it's true. So I will say, like, I was way more into Waddle, like in the big board, but he was going in the 6th, and it was like he was going like right next to Olave. He's come up a lot since then, and so he's become less of a priority. Like I'm overweight, but not by much. I'm like a Davis Mattek 10% right now on Waddle. And yeah, I moved him up as well, but I suspect the market will do the same. If he gets into the range again, like I'm really concerned he's going to start going ahead of like Kittle Hurts. Because to me, that's such a red line where like that's kind of like a full teardrop where I'm like, are you someone I'm willing to take ahead of Kittle Hurts or not? I don't think I am willing to take Jalen Waddle ahead of them. Like I could, if I had to, I could take him ahead of DK and Smith.
Unless you've started Bijan and McBride, and then you'll do it.
For sure.
Right.
But yeah, I will concede that like I've been out on Hill, but I totally acknowledge like the one part of my argument that does not really hold up to scrutiny is the fact that like not even as much how would Waddle be good now. It's more like it doesn't make any. My argument for Waddle is that it doesn't make any sense that he just stopped being good at age 26. Like after being like a high target earner, high efficiency player for all of the rest of his career previously. And so if you then think that maybe Tyreek Hill became bad, it doesn't explain why Waddle was also bad in the same way.
That's my
it points to something going on offense wide. Like
and
I also
and from like predicting it every week. That's what was happening. Like we were living, like we lived that experience. Like we know that it was like predictable. Like they're gonna throw a shitload. They have to throw this week, but it will all be to Achane and Jonnu, and then it would be because they had to get the ball out quick because they couldn't protect Tua.
I think there's an element to where Waddle was just like never like like he just had such a disjointed season last year. Like he was hurt like 7 times, and Tua was hurt, and I felt like they just never had a chance to like. And then Hill was kind of bad. I don't know. I just think it was kind of a thing where they just never had a chance to like get their sea legs under them as an offense. They were so far behind in the playoff picture when Tua came back, and they kind of found something that was working ish, and it was almost like an addiction. Like it was like you like know that this isn't good for you, but one day you'll figure it out and you'll like wean yourself off. But in the meantime, like you just need another hit, and they just needed another hit of Jonnu screen passes. And it was like, we don't know if Hill's washed. We don't know if Waddle's going to sprain his ankle 7 times in the same game. We're just going to throw to Jonnu and Achane and hope to squeeze into the playoffs. And that was kind of how I perceived it. And then
honestly, I agree with that. Like it's because the thing they did know is that their offensive line sucks and the quarterback cannot take hits.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see what happens this year. But I moved Hill up a lot, actually. Like I moved him up. I had him behind all 3 of the elite quarterbacks, which was basically just telling anyone using my rankings, we don't take Tyreek Hill.
You won't see his name.
And now I have him in a range that is still behind ADP, but in a range where it's at least plausible you could get some Tyreek Hill. So
now you will actually see his name when you're drafting, is what you're saying. At this point. Now his
I'm
name
more,
up here.
I'm more open-minded because I think that his floor goes up. Like, I agree with what Davis said, where it's like, is he Tyreek Hill or is he not? That's a big part of it. But they now, I think, announced an intention and are also now reliant on not running the same bullshit that they did last year. Like the plan at this point clearly has to be to use Tyreek Hill and Waddle more like they did in 2022 and 2023 than they did in 2024. We'll see if one or both of them are up to it, but that has to be the plan.
I think macro, it's Mike McDaniel's ride or die here. Like, is he what's his next job? Is he a head coach somewhere, or is he an offensive coordinator again?
Offensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers.
Not the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going like Texas A&M.
Head coach, Texas A&M.
No. When this ends in Miami, it's not going to be good.
He's the slot wide receiver of Davis Mattek's coach's team.
I could see him being offensive assistant for the 49ers, like
No, the Shanahan guys
coach / consultant,
assistant to the head coach.
Yeah, assistant to the head coach. That thing.
One thing I don't agree with Davis saying,
if he's just designing wrinkles, it's the good wrinkles.
I would love to have him as OC.
He's going to do his thing this year, and then he'll be gone or not if he succeeds. One thing I don't agree with Davis saying earlier, though, is when Davis referred to big fantasy football media as if, what is, if you're not it, what is big fantasy football media actually?
There are, Mike, there are channels you've never heard of that have 200,000 YouTube subscribers. I'm not even like, if you were viewing it as the inner circle, like, I'm not even in the ring of Saturn, brother. I'm basically InfoWars for fantasy football.
We got it out of him.
That's like
what was your meeting? What was your meeting today?
Darnell Washington was at
liberal.
Okay.
You pop. God. That's not how you open a jar of pickles.
Risers.
All right.
We haven't got to risers yet?
No.
We started with the,
Davis.
I compared Jaydon Blue to Donovan Edwards.
This is the InfoWars of fantasy football. You think we're going to be disciplined? What's the risers?
Here are the names.
I think I am good. J.K. Dobbins is on this list because I think he's now approaching equilibrium. I think he's now basically being drafted where it's like sometimes you can just pass on him and be like, this team doesn't need the J.K. Dobbins profile. Like in the 140s, I think you were just clicking him. Now I'm at the point where I'm like, oh, well, this team might need a Guerrero. This team might need a Ray Davis. This team might need a Jaydon Blue. I know it's an unpopular opinion here
Spears
on this channel.
I'm a Jaydon Blue centrist. I think he's got a role to play.
Can we be done with Etienne though? Like, who's doing this? This is what I need to know.
I thought he would start going down. He had that quote where the beat was like, I guess I'll get a shot, but like, I don't know. And then And I thought I was going to get the chance to be like pro Etienne as he fell, but apparently he's still rising. So I don't know.
Here are the names: Dobbins, Kittle, Etienne, Devontae Adams, Dante Thornton, Jawan Jennings. I'll take credit for Thornton. Jawan Jennings, Dylan Sampson, Josh Downs, and Emeka Ibuka, which is interesting to me. I'm not sure I understand that one, but it's
Josh Downs is getting the InfoWars bump for sure.
Yeah, Downs is my number one owned receiver. 26.
Yeah, I love Downs.
I think I have the same percentage on that one.
We asked last week, why isn't he moving up? Why isn't he on this list? And now he is.
MBF is correct that once Brian Robinson Jr. goes off the board, people just start panicking. And if you are not a Scadaboo or Tracy drafter, Etienne feels like a life jacket.
That's one I don't understand. Why is Scadaboo going down?
Because all rookies are going down?
Is that based on anything?
I wonder if people saw what he looked like and were just like, "There's no chance. There's no chance that this guy."
Honestly, I think him not knowing who Calvin Johnson was, and when I say that they was shown a picture. Amon-Ra St. Brown on his podcast showed him a picture of Calvin Johnson, like just the guy, like not with his helmet off, and he was like, and he didn't know who it was. But then they showed a picture of, I think it was Marcus Colston, and I was like, is that Michael Thomas? No, it's not Michael Thomas. Who is that? Like, I had the same thing. I think it's just you don't see these guys like when Calvin Johnson was at his peak. This dude was probably 12 years old. He can't pick his face out of a lineup. So what? It's fine. But I think that hurt his ADP. I think we're like, oh, this guy's an idiot. He doesn't watch football.
You don't see their faces that often.
You don't. He was familiar with Megatron. He was like, oh, is that Megatron? Oh, shit. Okay.
Jennings makes sense. I think there's sort of a Niners buzz overall.
Well, it's also bearish reports on Aiyuk that is driving that as well.
Yeah.
Those reports are not great. Sacrilegious pointed out that there was some mystery ailment for Scadaboo where they asked about
incorrect. It was not an ailment. It was the same thing that's happening with a bunch of the second round picks. It was contract language. He's not hurt.
He's not hurt. Okay.
Is that going to be a bigger problem than it is? By the way, 2 second round picks are signed already.
I frankly think that Shamar might be like I have a feeling he really might just be like, I'm not playing, dude. You guys don't do this for me. I'm not playing.
First round.
Yeah. Well, and the Bengals then will have one fewer sack than they would have had. So,
but it's a lot of guys that we care about. It's Burden. I mean, it's Judkins.
Wait. Have you guys just seen the news? I have breaking news.
No.
It's not InfoWars breaking news. It's real breaking news. The Miami Dolphins got their tight end. They have signed Darren Waller out of retirement.
No shot, dude. No shot.
Is that right?
That is going to take so much money from me.
Tom Pelissero. The Dolphins are finalizing a trade with the Giants for the rights to Pro Bowl tight end Darren Waller, who's coming out of retirement to play for Miami.
Oh, my God.
Do you have any idea how much money this is going to cost me?
Do you have any idea
how
psyched that the random guy is who's been drafting Darren Waller and he's about to post his screenshot to X?
Pat, why don't you ask him? It's Davis Mattek.
There's someone with 28% Waller.
How do you like Jacob coming with this and not the Victor Arvidsson trade? I mean, that is good stuff from Jacob. All right.
Where are we going to draft Darren Waller? Let's see.
Look
right now.
Look, here we go. We're already I have 1% There were Waller drafters. I knew it.
That's going up.
My first instinct is that Waller should immediately go ahead of Isaiah Likely.
Oh my God!
No.
Oh my God!
I think not.
All right, talk me down.
All right, let's look up Darren. Let's
the last time we saw Darren Waller, he was giving an interview on a podcast where he was talking about how he had to block RB punch 3 times in a drive in Buffalo, and he was like, I don't want to do this anymore, and then he quit football.
Davis, remember 2 years ago we did best ball together, and Darren Waller was the key man. What was that? Round 4 in those drafts? We just had to have Darren Waller. Is that 2 years ago only?
2 years ago, yeah. he turns 33 in September 13th. So yeah, this is his age 33 season. 2 years ago, he was at 1.55 yards per route run, 1.58 the year before in Vegas. So he fell off. He had this run where he was like in the mid twos for a while. He drops to 1.7, falls off again to the 1.5s. But 1.5s is kind of like where a lot of tight ends live. So
Fine.
if you were to do that in Miami, I mean, shit. We're going to be drafting some Darren Waller as long as he's cheap. As long as he's cheap.
This is going to be the best Ertz Gerald season ever.
This is an Ertz Gerald. Yeah, I mean, if he's anywhere near Ertz, like I would take him around.
Isn't that
Ertz.
where you just draft him? Right around Zach Ertz?
Right around Zach Ertz,
That's
yeah.
the spot, right?
Oh,
I would take him over
Jonnu
and
Jatavion Sanders.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd take him over Jonnu and Freiermuth.
You know what? I'm going to go add him into my rankings right now, and it's going to be irresponsible.
Is anybody up in anything where it might be appropriate to draft Darren Waller? I'm only up in one.
I would say like the 170s ish. I think would be my first.
The tight ends you are picking in that range anyway are going to be terrible. You can at least squint and see Darren Waller having the Ertz Gerald season.
Would you rather have Darren Waller or Kate Otten?
Darren Waller.
Me too.
I think I'm Darren Waller too.
Oh,
wow.
Kate Otten doesn't even exist. I actually think I might not have Kate Otten ranked.
Come on.
What's the point?
He's been productive when he's gotten an opportunity.
After every other player
he runs all the routes
on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, making sure Darren Waller. Okay, Darren Waller does have a player ID.
Yeah, can you put that in the chat just so that I could enter it in my rankings easier?
Yes, I will.
DFS, Miami, Indianapolis, Jacobs Colts, week 1.
Oh, yeah, we're doing a Darren Waller stack for sure. I can't wait to do the Daniel Jones, Josh Downs, Darren Waller.
All right, here's the line. Mason Taylor, I have at 184 in my ranks. I think that's
Waller.
Right about the line. Okay. Hunter Henry is at 177 in my ranks.
That's Henry for me.
Okay.
That's a
And there
tough
we go.
one, but I think I'm going Henry.
I'm going 178 for Waller.
Okay, so I have Henry at 163. I have Strange right behind him. I would take Strange over Waller.
Me too.
I wouldn't.
But then I have Ertz at 172 is the next tight end, and I think I would take Waller. Maybe I wouldn't take him over Ertz because Ertz is basically what we're hoping Waller is.
I have Ertz at 166 and Otten at 167, and I
have Ertz. Then I have Nick Chubb. I'm going to put him right behind Ertz, right ahead of Nick Chubb.
You can't take Sonat if I take Ertz.
True.
Take Ben Sonat. Oh yeah, you do take Ben Sonat.
I do.
You're a brave man.
That's one word for it.
Braver than me, that's for sure.
Well, this is big. We were here for it. Darren Waller to Miami.
This is the most useful ADP chasing is maybe ever been. Breaking news, real news.
I like that I had Jake Ferguson gets traded, and that I was accused of galaxy braining. Imagine if I had said they're going to sign Darren Waller.
I know.
They would have been the biggest galaxy brain, ridiculous take, and yet that's what they did. Maybe they did have this lined up. You were talking about it. They need the backup lined up. Maybe they always were talking to Waller.
No, that's clearly what happened, right? Part of why they did it is because they had back channel, like they were talking to Darren Waller's, I don't know, I guess his rap agent, and they were like, "Is he interested?" And he was like, sure.
Did they have to trade for him?
Yes.
Yeah, because he was still under contract with the Giants. They had to trade for his rights.
Now there's also someone who took.
Much.
There's also someone who took Michael Mayer like 6 times in a draft yesterday. Someone was drafted.
Oh
Michael
yeah, there's
Mayer
a Mayer guy
yesterday.
Yeah,
so, no,
the same guy as the Waller guy. Actually, he's just not showing that part of the screenshot.
Someone has 22% of Nick Westbrook Achane, and they are just punching air right now.
Oh, that's tough.
Or Kyle Pitts.
The Malik Washington drafters are down real bad.
No, I think. By the way, I think Malik Washington. Is still
sorry,
fine.
Gretsch.
Oh, I didn't know I was coming after Gretsch.
Yeah.
It was exciting to think about Pitts in Miami for a minute.
Yeah.
Because his being traded is believable, isn't it?
They had to trade a 6th-round pick.
That's like a lot. That's bullish for this Waller. That I might have Waller a little.
Oh, but
higher
they got a 7th back, so they traded a
never mind.
2026 6th for Waller and a 7th.
Yeah,
So
that was
basically nothing.
That was a little bit like my Cowboys idea earlier, only 5 years more recent. But yeah, that's what we do now. We trade a player and a 7th for a 6th. That's what we do.
Joe says he took Julian Hill yesterday. Well, it was worth a shot.
I mean, you did that to yourself. No one told you to do that. The best ball.
Literally, no one told you that. I don't think anyone ranked Julian Hill.
Big fantasy football media did not advise it.
Oh,
whatever
they
that.
didn't.
Whatever
No,
that
big
is.
fantasy
news, the
football
Bucs,
media is moving Jalen Waddle. Yeah, Miles Turner.
Bucks just and they waived Damian Lillard.
That's crazy. That's crazy to not be able to trade. Like the Nets wouldn't take him.
Yeah.
All right. So much happening. Fallers.
Oh, we got an NWI is still a good click.
Yeah, there's an NWI hive.
Maybe in last call if he's not taken already. Fallers, guys, we have 5 names. Joe Burrow.
Pretty obvious last call pick. Who's getting first pick today?
Me, I always go first.
No,
I
think we should do like a random number generator.
We need a random. Yeah, we need.
We do. Okay, I will do a random.org between
random.org for us.
I got someone else in mind anyway, so don't worry about me. Fallers, Joe Burrow, Jack Bech, Jaydon Blue. We talked about Aiyuk was mentioned, and then Marvin Mims. Burrow has been interesting all season.
Why is Jack Bech in a polo shirt? Everybody else,
well,
here.
Jacob, can you think of one reason?
Yeah, I can.
Him being in a polo is so outrageous. A polo with the t-shirt underneath, like this guy is about to like go sell a car.
Ryan Gosling is about to like reshape his life so that he can get with Marissa Tomei or whoever that is.
He's not about to play football, that's for sure.
Davis, you're on mute, but I'm sure you're saying something.
You're unmuted,
funny.
Davis. You're muted. I think you unplugged your mic, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're still muted.
Still muted. It was tough because I saw the twinkle in his eye. I could tell that.
Yeah, no, I know.
No, my mic is
We
on.
got you. No.
Now
You
we
just
can hear
you said your mic was on and then proceeded to turn it back off.
And now you're on mute again.
Now you're on mute again. It's still on mute.
You're on mute.
I'm going on my AirPods because you guys are
Davis right there was represent. It was a metaphor for Jack Bech's year 1 role.
You know, the last Raiders wide receiver that everyone widely mocked a photo of his appearance? Wide receiver 9, Hunter Renfrow, the photo of him holding the grapes. Everyone laughed and laughed and laughed. They laughed. And you know what he did? Put up cold, hard fantasy stats.
They also made fun of Bowers.
They also made fun of Bowers. I'm starting to sense a trend. Of an undervalued asset for the Las Vegas Raiders. They've identified.
He better change first.
I mean, Jacob actually had the most bullish Jack Bech tweet, which is that Bech is the first wide receiver drafted in the top, in the first 2 rounds since going past wide receiver 60. If you're not blindly buying at this price, you're playing the game wrong.
I'm starting to get intrigued by Bech. I am. I'm starting to take more of him than I was for sure. We're all just sitting in that.
Where did Shope go?
I don't know. Oh, Shope's sitting backstage.
I'm out here. I'm back here shouting the name Hunter Renfrow for the last 90 seconds.
It's a blank screen for me.
You got me or no?
I can't hear a word Shope's saying. Can you guys?
Jacob, Davis?
I can hear.
Yeah,
I can hear him.
Right.
Weird day.
Something weird's happening with my stuff.
The last thing I heard.
This is not our most technically proficient episode.
Davis is muting himself. I can't hear Shope. It's no good.
Now Shope's gone.
All right, Shope's gone. Did we do everything? Oh, last call. All right. Do you have the random number generator? Davis is muted again.
Oh, I can pull this up. I'll go to wheelofnames.com.
Okay, here we go.
I'm not muted. I'm just on the wrong input now.
Okay.
1 sec.
Got to be the
problem is I only have.
Here we go. All right. I got it. I just got to share the window. Here we go.
You got me? Last call? Are we there?
Yeah, just someone's just got to share my thing. Pat?
Yeah, hang on.
You have to approve it.
I'm looking for players to pick.
I'll get mine out of the way if you want to fight for whoever it is.
Well, you're on the wheel. There we go.
All right.
All right.
Let's go. Wheel of names, the best.
Come on.
Dave Mattek.
Oh, baby.
It's
oh,
rigged.
baby.
It's
Oh,
rigged.
baby. Thank you, Wheel of Names. I'd like to thank my good friends at Wheel of Names. Keep applauding. All right. I will select Darren Waller, tight end, Miami Dolphins.
It's a good pick.
Easy
I'm
game.
I'm tilting so hard.
Jacob, there
Yeah,
should be
it's
some
Canada Day.
a la NHL
That's
draft.
true.
There should
It
be
is
some
Canada Day.
conversation you have
Congratulations.
with Waller, like some real super 10 out of 10 awkward conversation like the NHL draft had, where it's like the 4 or 5 executives in a remote location at their facility, and then the player talking to each other. I mean, just as stiff as it gets, horrible.
He's
but
got to
we
put
don't
on
have
a
Darren
Jacob
Waller.
hat.
He's got to put on a Jacob hat. We don't have Darren Waller today, sadly, but we'll work on that.
This is going to be continues to. This is now the third player that was not on a team. Actually, the fourth player that was not on a team at the time of the NFL draft that now has a team. It'll be 5 when Amari Cooper eventually signs. So I would say he fits in best on my team. Really, this is a good group for him.
He's the youngest player on your team. If I just take a quick look,
He's definitely he brings the age down for sure.
Yes. All right. Do we keep spinning or just pass it around at this point?
I can't
have
hear
my
anything
guy.
Shope's saying. So just assume if Shope's talking, I have no idea what's been said.
Wow. I get that a lot, but not from you usually,
Yeah,
Pat.
I can hear you.
We
though,
can
Jacob.
hear you, Shope.
I can't hear Davis
So do you need
anymore.
us to?
Davis is on mute.
Davis
Davis is
What's
on
happening?
mute, maybe.
I don't know. I can only hear you. It's 4
I'm not
people.
on mute. I'm not on
Okay,
mute.
all right.
All my stuff is working over here. Something is going wrong where you guys are at. But I really needed Waller because I am down bad at the tight end position. So that is extra tilting. I was gonna try and connect the dots here with Michael Mayer. I was gonna take Michael Mayer, but that does not work now. But I have an exception that proves the rule. He really shouldn't have a 200 ADP, but I'm gonna take Juwan Johnson. I'm gonna do the Tyler Shuck Juwan Johnson stack. I've got Milroe and Arroyo. I've got Shuck and Juwan Johnson, reuniting them like they were college roommates. So they are now back together in the room for me.
I'll go ahead and take Kyle Monungai, who might be the RB2 in Chicago ultimately. It's possible. Could happen.
And assuming you guys, at least one
That's
of
all I
you
got.
can hear me,
Man, you guys should have been.
I
way
can hear
better
you,
with
Shope.
names.
I can hear you.
I'll take Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, I'm going to reload
Patty
because I
took
can't.
Kareem
I can't
Hunt.
hear
He took
Kareem Hunt is a really good one. Kareem Hunt
Yeah.
is just obviously.
Wow, that's a
Just
good
gotta
pick.
Do it.
Yeah.
I continue my role on last call.
Okay.
Yeah. That's strong.
All right. Before we all blow up here from whatever is going on with the technology, it is Canada Day. Jacob, you've got beach plans, NHL free agency tracking plans. It's going to be exciting.
Certainly. Yeah, and just hoping the Leafs can get under bargain winger. I want to thank Mitch Marner for his 9 years with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Sad it ended poorly. Glad we got something for you. It's going to be a day
You're
of.
not going to believe this, but now
hitting
Jacob
refresh.
and Shope's good.
Oh my God, Pat! It's a Pat problem.
It's definitely a Pat problem.
End the show.
What
End the
This
show.
is this is definitely on Pat.
This is clearly. I mean,
Oh,
very
end the
clearly.
show.
It's decided. Jacob didn't ask me who my favorite curlers were, which was
Yeah, who's your
unfortunate for me,
favorite
but-
curler? Who's your favorite
Dunstone
curler?
has passed Botcher for me, and of course Rachel.
Oh, nice.
Nobody can beat Rachel. What's work like for you guys this week? July 4th on Friday. Can somebody? Oh, Pat can hear me now. What are the plans for
can hear
the
it, yeah.
holiday and for the website? Leg up.
My parents are going to be visiting for the 4th, and I've got a friend coming down, one of my high school buddies. So we're going to be doing some stuff, in New York, just enjoying the 4th. Have some babysitting lined up with the parents in town, which is always nice.
Lucky you.
And then leg up wise, we just launched officially this morning the Sims-based Sidekick update. So if you want to check that out, we got a 5-day free trial running. For existing Leg Up subscribers, email me at legendaryupside@gmail.com. Had some issues with people not getting the trial to work as intended. So just email me if you're already subscribed. If you're not subscribed to the site, you just head over, sign up for the trial at the Sidekick tier. You'll get 5 days free. Yeah, we now support Eliminator, Weekly Winners, Superflex, all those different types of formats. And also dial in the recommendations for, you know, the specific contest structure that you're in. So like the 555 is treated differently than the $20 milli, big dog different from BBM, all that. And just better recommendations in general. So if you want to check it out, legendaryupside.com/sidekick.
Davis, so you said the other day you'd be late today. I knew it was Canada Day. Jacob last week suggested maybe he wouldn't be around. I threw out in the Discord, you know, do we take a week off? And Davis, much to his credit, said we're too close to the season, which is awesome. The Hall of Fame game is July 31st. Today is July 1st. So are you feeling it, Davis? I mean, can you feel the ball in the air?
Yeah, dude, you have I believe 65 days left to draft enough teams to change your life. Like the clock is already ticking. Like if you are not ahead of the curve right now, you are behind the curve. So yeah, I think we are way too close to the start of the season. And look what we manifested, Shope. You saying let's skip the show, got Jonnu Smith traded and got Darren Waller traded from the
minutes.
To the Dolphins.
Minutes later. I just put it out there. You know, maybe you guys wanted a break, but it wasn't for me to decide anyway.
Davis said we were too close to the season during last season's conference title games, to be fair.
What do we need to know about your schedule this week?
Swolecast directly after this. Then I'm streaming with Nick Zylak from Fantasy Football Advice at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Streaming with Liam tomorrow. Streaming with Mr. Fantasy Flock on Thursday. Then on Friday, we have got the member team review show. So if you're a member of the Davis Mattek YouTube channel, submit your teams, elite or delete. And we're saying your team's good, your team's bad. Pretty fun. But yes, as Chad says, he can't believe how close the season is. If you're not drafting, you don't care enough about your future. So be drafting more.
Nice.
What is going on? Got to jam this in. Especially for you. 6 times have been dropped off just for a second. Pat, today is Bulldog's 60th birthday. So on the Odyssey app.
All right.
At WGR.
Happy birthday, Bulldog. What is going on with show? Everyone said it was me, but this dude's dropping off every 10 seconds. Can't even wish Bulldog a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Bulldog.
Oh my God.
Happy birthday to the Bulldog.
End the show.
See you next week. Happy 4th. Happy Canada Day.
See you guys.
All right. Happy 4th.